Speak with truth and emotional clarity, not just information, because information alone may fill the mind, but truth, when carried with emotion, reaches the heart, and it is the heart that remembers long after words are spoken. Anyone can share facts, anyone can repeat ideas, but not everyone can make people feel seen, understood, and awakened at the same time. When you speak, do not aim only to sound intelligent, aim to sound real. People are not moved by perfection. They are moved by authenticity, by the cracks in your voice, by the honesty in your story, by the courage it takes to say something that is deeply human. Truth without emotion can feel cold, distant, and forgettable. Emotion without truth can feel empty and performative. But when the two come together, something powerful happens, something that connects one soul to another. That is where impact lives. That is where influence begins. When you speak with emotional clarity, you are not just saying words, you are allowing people to feel the meaning behind those words, to experience them, to relate to them, and to reflect on their own lives through what you are sharing. This kind of speaking requires courage. It requires you to look within yourself and ask, what do I really believe? What have I really experienced? What truth have I been avoiding? Because emotional clarity does not come from memorized lines. It comes from lived moments. It comes from pain you have faced, lessons you have learned, and growth you have chosen. When you speak from that place, people listen differently. They do not just hear you, they feel you. It also requires simplicity. Speaking with truth and emotional clarity is not about using complicated words or trying to impress people with vocabulary. It is about being clear, direct, and sincere. It is about saying things in a way that anyone can understand, but in a way that everyone can feel. Sometimes the simplest sentence carries the deepest meaning because it is honest and unfiltered. There is also responsibility in speaking this way. When your words carry emotion and truth, they have the power to influence, to heal, and sometimes even to hurt. That is why intention matters. You are not speaking to manipulate. You are speaking to connect. You are not speaking to dominate. You are speaking to uplift. Every word should come from a place of purpose, not ego. And understand this, people can sense when you are not being genuine. They can feel when something is forced, when emotion is exaggerated, or when truth is missing. But they can also feel when something is real, when your words are aligned with your heart, and when your message carries sincerity. That kind of honesty builds trust, and trust is the foundation of any meaningful connection. When you choose to speak with truth and emotional clarity, you give people permission to do the same. You create a space where honesty feels safe, where vulnerability feels strong, and where real conversations can happen. That is how you move beyond surface level communication and into something deeper, something that stays with people long after the moment has passed. So do not just speak to inform, speak to connect. Do not just deliver words, deliver meaning. And do not just aim to be heard, aim to be felt. Because at the end of the day, people may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Use real life relatability so the audience sees themselves in your words. Because no matter how powerful your message is, it will only truly matter when people can recognize a part of their own life inside it. People do not connect to perfection. They connect to familiarity. They connect to the struggles they have faced, the doubts they have carried, the quiet moments they have experienced but never spoken about. When you speak in a way that reflects real life, you are not just sharing a message, you are holding up a mirror. Relatability begins with honesty about ordinary experiences. It is not always about dramatic stories or extraordinary achievements. It is often about the small, everyday moments that everyone understands. The feeling of being overlooked, the fear of failure, the disappointment of broken trust, the hope that things will get better. These are universal emotions, and when you speak about them in a simple and genuine way, people naturally lean in because they see themselves in those words. To be relatable, you must be willing to be vulnerable. That does not mean sharing everything, but it means sharing enough truth that people can sense your humanity. When you admit that you have struggled, when you acknowledge that you have made mistakes, when you speak about moments where you did not have all the answers, you create a connection that feels real. People are not inspired by someone who seems untouchable. They are inspired by someone who feels like them but kept moving forward. Language also plays a powerful role in relatability. If your words are too complex, too polished, or too distant from everyday life, people may understand you, but they will not feel you. Speaking in a way that is simple, clear, and natural makes your message accessible. It makes people feel like you are talking with them, not at them. It removes the barrier between speaker and listener and replaces it with a sense of shared experience. Another important part of relatability is awareness. You must understand who you are speaking to, what they might be going through, what challenges they face, and what emotions they carry. When your message reflects their reality, it becomes meaningful. It becomes something they can hold on to. Without that awareness, even the most powerful words can feel distant and disconnected. Stories are one of the strongest tools for creating relatability. When you share a story, especially one rooted in real life, you invite people into a moment. You allow them to walk through it with you, to feel what you felt, and to draw their own meaning from it. A well-told story does not just describe an experience, it recreates it in the minds of the audience. And when they can see it, feel it, and understand it, they begin to connect on a deeper level. Relatability also requires empathy. It is not just about sharing your own experiences. It is about acknowledging the experiences of others. It is about speaking in a way that makes people feel understood, even if you have not lived their exact story. People seen and heard, they open themselves to your message. They trust it more and they carry it with them longer. It is important to remember that relatability is not about trying to please everyone. It is about being genuine enough that the right people recognize themselves in your words. When you try too hard to fit every audience, you risk losing authenticity. But when you stay true to your voice and your experiences, the connection you create becomes stronger and more meaningful. When you use real life relatability, your message stops being distant and becomes personal. It moves from something people hear to something they feel. It becomes a shared moment rather than a one-sided speech. And in that moment, the audience is no longer just listening to you. They're walking alongside you, seeing their own journey reflected in yours, and finding meaning that goes beyond the words themselves. Deliver lessons, not judgments. Guide, don't attack. Because the moment people feel judged, they stop listening, and the moment they feel understood, they start reflecting. Communication is not about proving someone wrong. It is about helping them see something they may not have noticed before. When your words come from a place of judgment, they create distance, defensiveness, and resistance. But when your words come from a place of guidance, they create openness, curiosity, and growth. Judgment often carries a tone of superiority. Sounds like you are placing yourself above others, as if you have all the answers and they have all the flaws. And people can sense that immediately. They may not say it out loud, but internally they begin to close off. They stop absorbing your message, not because it lacks truth, but because the way it is delivered feels like an attack on who they are. No one wants to feel small, exposed, or criticized in a way that strips them of dignity. And on the other hand, is rooted in humility. It acknowledges that everyone is learning, everyone is evolving, and everyone has areas where they can grow. When you guide, you are not pointing fingers, you are offering direction. You are saying, then this is what I have learned, this is what I have seen, and this is something that might help you. That shift in tone makes all the difference. It turns a message from something people resist into something they consider. Delivering lessons means focusing on the insight, not the individual, means talking about behaviors, patterns, and consequences, rather than labeling people as good or bad. When you remove labels, you remove the feeling of being attacked. You allow people to reflect without feeling threatened. They can look at their own actions honestly because they do not feel like they are being judged as a person. It also means using language that invites reflection instead of forcing agreement. Instead of saying, you are wrong, you say, consider this. Instead of saying, this is the only way, you say, this is another way to see it. This approach respects the listener's ability to think, to choose, and to grow at their own pace. It empowers them rather than controlling them. There is also compassion in guidance. When you understand that people act from their own experiences, their own fears, and their own limitations, it becomes easier to speak with kindness. Even when addressing difficult truths, compassion softens the delivery without weakening the message. You can be honest without being harsh, direct without being damaging. That balance is what makes your words impactful rather than hurtful. Another important aspect is intention. Ask yourself why you are speaking. Is it to prove a point, to win an argument, or to genuinely help someone grow? When your intention is to guide, your tone naturally shifts. Your words become more thoughtful, more measured, and more constructive. People can feel that intention, and it makes them more willing to listen. Guidance also requires patience. Not everyone will understand immediately. Not everyone will agree, and not everyone will change right away. But your role is not to force transformation, it is to offer perspective. Growth is a personal journey, and your words are simply a part of that process. When you accept that, you remove the pressure to control outcomes and focus instead on delivering value. When you choose to deliver lessons instead of judgments, you create a space where people feel safe to learn. You remove fear and replace it with possibility. You turn criticism into clarity and conflict into conversation. That is how real impact is made, not by tearing people down, but by helping them rise. So guide with wisdom, speak with empathy, and always remember that your words have the power to either build walls or open doors. Choose to open doors because behind those doors is where understanding, growth, and true change begin. End with empowerment, leaving listeners stronger and wiser, because the final moments of your message are not just an ending, they are a lasting impression, a feeling that stays with people long after your words are gone. It is in those closing lines that you have the opportunity to shift someone's mindset, to lift their spirit, and to remind them of their own strength. A powerful ending is not about repeating what has already been said. It is about transforming everything you have shared into something the audience can carry forward into their lives. Empowerment means giving people a sense of control over their own path. It means reminding them that no matter what they have faced, no matter how uncertain things may feel, they still have the ability to choose to act and to grow. When people feel empowered, they do not just understand your message, they believe they can apply it. They move from passive listeners to active participants in their own journey. That shift is what makes a message truly meaningful. Ending with empowerment also requires clarity. You are not leaving people with confusion or doubt. You are leaving them with direction. This does not mean giving them a list of instructions, but rather offering a clear perspective that they can hold on to. It is about helping them see possibilities instead of limitations, solutions instead of obstacles, and strength instead of weakness. When your words provide clarity, they become a source of confidence. There is also an emotional element to empowerment. It is not enough to simply tell people they are capable. They need to feel it. Your words should awaken something within them, a sense of belief that may have been quiet or forgotten. This emotional connection is what drives action. When people feel inspired, they are more likely to take steps toward change, even if those steps are small. And often, it is those small steps that lead to meaningful transformation. Empowerment is also about responsibility. It encourages people to take ownership of their choices, their actions, and their future. Instead of placing blame or focusing on circumstances they cannot control, it shifts attention to what is within their power. This does not ignore challenges, but it reframes them. It shows that even in difficult situations, there is always something a person can do, some way they can respond, some decision they can make that moves them forward. Another important aspect is hope. A strong ending leaves people with a sense of possibility. It reminds them that change is not only possible, it is within reach. Hope does not mean ignoring reality. It means believing that reality can improve. When you give people hope, you give them a reason to keep going and to keep trying and to keep believing in themselves even when things feel uncertain. Empowerment also respects individuality. It does not tell people exactly what their path should look like. It encourages them to discover it for themselves. It acknowledges that each person's journey is unique and that strength can show up in different ways. By honoring that individuality, your message becomes more personal and more meaningful. And perhaps most importantly, ending with empowerment is leaving people with a sense of worth. It reminds them that they matter, that their voice matters, and that their actions have value. When people feel valued, they are more likely to believe in their ability to create change, not only in their own lives, but in the lives of others as well. When you close with empowerment, you are not just finishing a speech, you are opening a door. A door to new thinking, new actions, and new possibilities. You are giving people something they can hold onto when they leave, something that stays with them in quiet moments and challenging times. That is the true power of a strong ending, not just to conclude, but to continue to live on in the thoughts, choices, and growth of those who listened. And as we come to the end of this conversation, understand this, the goal was never to make you fearful of people, but to make you aware of who deserves a place in your life. Because trust is not something you give lightly, it is something you protect wisely. Every experience you have had, every disappointment, every lesson has been preparing you to see more clearly, to choose more carefully, and to value yourself more deeply. The truth is, the people you allow into your life will shape your energy, your mindset, and your future. That is why awareness matters, not to judge others, but to recognize patterns, to protect your peace, and to create boundaries that honor your worth. You are not here to fix everyone. You are not here to carry everyone. And you are not here to ignore what you feel just to keep others comfortable. When you begin to trust yourself more, everything changes. You start noticing what once went unseen. You start listening to the quiet voice within you that tells you when something feels right and when it does not. And that voice, that intuition is one of your greatest strengths. So walk forward with clarity. Choose honesty over illusion. Choose respect over attention. Choose peace over chaos. And most importantly, choose people who reflect the values you are building within yourself. Because at the end of the day, your life is not defined by how many people surround you, but by the quality of those who stand beside you. Protect your energy, honor your boundaries, and never forget that you have the power to decide who gets access to your world. And when you make those choices with wisdom, you do not just protect your life, you elevate it.